just want to say, first of all, a big thank you for joining the Delta Sax Quartet's Project Flicks
Been a pleasure.
extravaganza. And you, when we were still allowed out to perform our music, it was great that you came and supported one of our events where we had lots of people coming to experience live music and watch a film going on at the same time, and that was down at Dorchester Arts Centre. And it was this year, but that seems like darkest history when we were performing earlier in January 2020.
It does. It feels like another life at the moment, doesn't it? It feels very, very strange. Yeah, but it wasn't that long ago. Yeah.
No, it just seems. So there's been a lot of experiences and water under the bridge.
Exactly.
But,
yeah.
Part of that concert was the quartet performing some of our other works we'd got as part of Project Flicks, which was where we were performing live to film, and part of we managed after our concert to persuade you to come and join this creative team, and we were talking about ideas of resourcing various films and material for something maybe you could be involved in this project with. Maybe you could talk about that, because it's interesting with, your experience of writing to film or image. Maybe that's a better, clearer. Maybe to say a little bit about your general work. Really, this is a comfort zone for you.
In ways it sort of is a comfort zone, but in ways it wasn't, because my main line of work, and we work together a lot doing this, is working for TV, writing music for various TV programs. So you have been badgering me to get writing for the quartet over the quite a while now. So and I've kind of, obviously other things come up and whatever, and I think it's one of those things that you are quite nervous about when you're working as a television and film composer and whatever. You have certain parameters that you're working with. One of them is that there's a certain length of time that a cue of music might be going on for, and obviously the shape of what's going on screen really dictates what you do. So actually to have that taken away from you is quite a nerve-wracking thing as a composer. So when I did come and see you in Dorchester and I saw you working two picture and playing the two pieces that you did, I thought, well, that's so I'm moving slightly more into my comfort zone, but not quite enough that that I would sort of just think of it as a TV gig, as it were. So this is obviously much more about my own creativity rather than being governed by producers and directors who want a certain direction to the music.
It's lovely that actually that what we've all sort of lost is our sense of freedom and being able to perform live, etc. But by giving you total freedom of music and image.
And this is the thing with image, because usually I'll get stuff that is put in front of me. I didn't realise actually when I sort of said, I'll do that, I'd like to do this, is that I was going to have to find my own images, which which kind of that was the tricky thing, because there was some ideas that I wanted to think of. What if I did this, and what if I did this, and have just like a very static image, and I could tell the story, or and then it was where am I going to get these images from? And there was that that was the first thing I thought of doing. And then I think it was around that time, it was the liberation of Auschwitz commemorations.
That's right, yeah.
And so I'd worked a few years ago with a production company based up north on these animations for concerning Holocaust survivors. And so I got in touch with them and sort of said, look, have you got any more footage that I could use perhaps and do something with that? And they'd used up every single bit of footage and imagery that they'd got on the films that they released. So that wasn't going to happen.
So waste not, want not.
It was waste not, want not. So that was that. But having said that, I'm glad it didn't happen, because I felt that perhaps if I did do something like that, that would be too much jumping on what probably a lot of other composers and creative people were doing. And then obviously this happened, and then we kind of went into lockdown.
We did, and sort of going into lockdown, in essence, I must admit, we were more just communicating to say, goodness me, shall we have a virtual hookup for a drink or a coffee, whatever was our flavour of the
drink.
Day.
A drink, yeah.
And,
a drink.
Yeah, of course. But then suddenly, out of what appeared to be taking all of our liberation away, or to be able to do things, something, as you said, when you're not looking and when you're not searching for something, as ever, the best things suddenly appear, and you spotted sight of something. So maybe you can tell a little bit about how the image you're using for this film.
Yeah, I mean,
for this project.
Once again, it came out. It was accident. It was there's one of these things, and the piece didn't come out the way I intended it to be, and what happened, getting ultimately the film together wasn't what I was looking for at all. So, but I think it was through Facebook actually, and it's a bass player who's probably a mutual friend of, I think, because you've worked with him and I've worked with him, and he shared some pictures on Facebook from another guy who I think is a bass player as well, who lives in central London, and he'd taken some images very, very early on in lockdown of London landmarks, and it was a beautiful, bright, clear, crisp spring morning, not a cloud in the sky, and he'd taken these incredibly striking images of Covent Garden and Regent Street and Oxford Street and whatever, and completely empty. And it made you kind of suddenly look at the city in a very, very different way. And something like Covent Garden, you look at how beautiful it is. Yeah. But at the same time, it's tempered by that feeling is that we're getting to see that beauty without any humans around, because we're all hiding away from each other.
It's like a nuclear holocaust.
Exactly. So there's a real darkness. So there's this wonder of like, God, is it what a beautiful day, and look at it's just so empty, and look at that those beautiful buildings, and then suddenly why it is, and there's that darkness. Yeah. Why it is, why it is happening. So that kind of got me thinking, that there's something in this.
Yeah.
So obviously I don't live anywhere near London, and you don't live anywhere near London. I was thinking, well, perhaps because I'm close to Totnes, and that's my hometown, perhaps I could do something and take some video just myself, and because I'd driven up a few times up the high street in Totnes, and there's the same type of feeling of that it was. Once again, it's a beautiful high street, lovely old buildings, Elizabethan architecture and whatever. And I can remember driving up there one sort of coming home from the shops at about 7:30 on a Saturday evening, and it was absolutely empty. Everything was closed, not a soul. I didn't pass a single human being out on the street as I drove up the high street.
You're used to with such a narrow high street up the hill there.
Yeah,
usually you're used to having to pull over and avoid pedestrians coming down.
It's such a vibrant high street. It really is. And to have all that sucked away, was quite striking. So then I thought of images, things on the move, that kind of driving along or whatever. Anyway, so my eldest son lives and works in the middle of Amsterdam. So I got in touch with him and just said, look, when you're out and about, if you're going to work or if you're out and about, I mean, I don't know what the regulations were then concerning exercise and what the rules were. And let's not talk about that now. What exactly the rules are and what they were then. But I said to him, well, look, if you're out and about, can you take some footage of you cycling, along the streets of Amsterdam? So he happily obliged over the course of a few days, and also he's because he works in the restaurant business. I think he had to go into the work just to sort out some stuff late one night or in the middle of the evening when it was dark. So he took some footage as well, some very, very striking footage when it was dark and empty. So he sent me all these little clips, which then I kind of spliced together. So I kind of learned on the job, as it were, how to splice things together in iMovie and shape it. It's amazing. I'm getting a real. I work a lot with editors on doing documentaries, especially, and the way that they kind of shape things to tell the story. I've got like this I always thought they were incredible, these guys, but I've got newfound respect for how that they can tell a story just by sort of inserting just little changes that they can make with image, just to sort of create this narrative, you know. So I got his you know, his very, very striking images, and they look great, and you know, I mean, I wish he'd cleaned the lens, but apart from that, you know, I think it gives it a certain,
adds to it, don't you think?
Well,
it gives
it gives an edginess to it, and it gives a roughness to it, you know. That it isn't a high quality performed, you know, filmed sort of set of images, and so I kind of set about that, and then started writing the piece, and I kind of got the first bit, which was a kind of more daytime sequence, and I then wrote to that, and then I thought, well, okay, let's should I have the nighttime at the end, or should I do the nighttime in the middle and then go back to day, and so the way I shaped it was that it starts off with sort of cycle rides and shots of very, very empty streets, and then goes into a nighttime sequence, and then comes back into day, and there's some more sort of springtime shots of kind of like Amsterdam, you know, the leaves on the trees coming out, and you know, all beautiful weather and what have you. So that's the way I shaped it, and then got writing.
I sort of love how I mean, I love the edginess of it. I like the movement of it. I like the shakiness of it. It reminds me of some of the classic footage when going way back into the 70s when I was, you know, a child, and you'd sort of see disturbing footage from war zones, really, and film on the move. It was probably Vietnam, and it was very
it feels immediate,
you know,
doesn't it? Yeah,
young child.
It's got an immediacy to it, hasn't it? Yeah,
and
it feels honest,
not,
you know. Yeah.
It's so raw, and it's so honest. It hasn't been airbrushed out.
No,
it hasn't been cleaned up in any way.
No, you're right.
It's very analog, even though it's been filmed digitally.
I know, exactly.
Because it hasn't been souped up in any way, and that for me gives a real graininess and integrity to something that can often seem missing in today's life, when everyone, you talk about social media, but how they're presenting their social media image has to be so perfect for young people.
I mean, it was. Yeah, I mean, Alex would definitely admit that it wasn't necessarily thought out. You know, there are no preparations of. I think it was just very much kind of spur of the moment. Oh, well, I'll take a picture of this. You know, which is a little bit the way I write music anyway. I kind of have no plan when I. It was
improvisational, nearly in a way of a jazz musician reacting to the moment.
Exactly, perhaps. Yeah. So it's So there's. So we're kind of like we do, you know, going on our gut instincts, you know, him in the filming and me on the writing, you know. And
I mean, when I was chatting to you last week about this, you'd said you'd got some sort of preconceived ideas. I suppose when you're taking on a project, you do start putting a certain framework around it, even if you don't know what the thing's going to be. And you thought maybe writing for Sax Quartet. You could say, like writing a book where you've got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you're talking about building a form, I suppose. And then you said to me that when you came to sort of the conclusion, obviously you've got a choice of whether, in a classic film sense, was it a happy ending, was it a sad ending, or what is the ending? Is it going on to another place we don't know? And you sort of, from your original thoughts, I think you'd said I'm sure you changed your mind en route quite a few times, but...
Yeah, I did change my mind quite a lot during the course of the piece, actually. All the sections, as I wanted it to be a kind of like an overall eerie feel, I think, for the most part, and very reflective and very contemplative about what was going on. And then it didn't work out that at all. The nighttime section especially, I wanted to, you know, my initial sketching out, as it were, was to be having something really, really sparse, almost like single instruments, so that the quartet were hardly working together as a quartet at all. You know, it was just sort of splashes of colour from each of the instruments. But that
you know is too well.
Exactly, but it sort of worked. But I thought, no, I think we can do something different here. So the middle section kind of came up about, you know, I think the whole thing is that when you start doing this, and it's probably the connection because it is my son who's over in Amsterdam, and it's that whole, you know, different emotions start going through you a little bit, you know, and you're not then thinking just about the images online. You're just thinking about the kind of I suppose as a parent, it's one of those things is that you do. I think one of the things with what's going on at the moment is that the need to protect. I mean, he's 25, but I think that need is still, or no, he's 24, will be 25 this year. But that need to protect your children in when things like this are going on is still strong, whatever age they are.
Of course.
And the fact is that he's over there. It would be difficult for him to come over. There's a very, very long story, but he's married to a Malaysian girl, and there've been immigration issues and whatever. And the frustration of that is that even if they wanted to come over, then there would be all sorts of immigration problems with him coming over.
Yeah.
So that kind of came out in the music. Actually, I think there's kind of more anxiety and frustration and anger with the situation, and that you can't, we are not able in a position, even though he wasn't working because his work had shut down. We're not in a position to be able to look after them and protect them as parents.
Yeah, I mean, I love that with that middle section and the night scene, as you say. Maybe the classic depiction of a night scene is the stillness and, in a way, the nothingness. Yeah. But at the moment, night can also be such an active time where your brain is working 10 to the dozen. You've got all of those worries. I'm sure many people in this period of time have found the nights in a way the most difficult because it's there's nothing to distract you when you were lying there apart from your thinking. And that's what came over to me.
I mean, how many times have you woken up? So, perhaps not so much now. I think we've sort of kind of settled into this life now. But over the, I think when it first started, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you think, oh my God,
I'm having recurring sort of not getting to the performance on time. Or not having my instruments. I'm going through this all the time. I've missed so many gigs in my head, exactly. In my dreams, and I just have the wrong instruments. I'm in the wrong place.
I don't work as a playing musician anymore. That's the thing. But I still get those dreams. I still get dreams about A-level exams that I've done absolutely zero revision for and things like that. But no, I mean, I think not so much the kind of like the subconscious, but actually when you do wake up and it is like dark and quiet and and you do think the kind of like, oh my goodness, and so there've been a few sort of anxious wakings up. I mean, not so much now. I think we've settled into our lives now, but in ways. So that all kind of came out in the middle bit, and then the last section, which I've sort of said earlier, was kind of very much Amsterdam waking up after winter and the spring, and you've got the blue water and the blue skies and things like that, and I wanted it to be a kind of like a thing of hope and spring is coming and it didn't turn out like that at all. It was still still kind of agonized and not mournful, but just a feeling of I don't know, just this could take a while actually, and kind of like a pining and a yearning.
Obviously a very strong image at the end, because it's actually saying love in the graffiti or what was painted on a wall there. It sort of reminded me of Die Mauer, sort of the German Berlin Wall there, but we've got it in Amsterdam.
Sure.
And when you've got the love, you can have the lightness and happiness of love, but that your conclusion and with having the lone solo alto voice going on at the end of this had all of that pain and the loss of love, and that really I don't want to be too romantic about it. It isn't romantic, it's actually really painful.
It is, and it's supposed to be anguished in a sort of like not a cry of anger, but it's just it is that a lot of people have lost their lives, and this could go on for a long time, and this has changed everything, for the journey.
I mean, I loved being a sort of geeky on a saxophone sort of world with a Mio and the creation of the world, and within that it's an alto saxophone with strings. The alto's taking the part of viola, and it had that poignancy to me, like a solo alto.
Yeah.
Okay, this was without any accompaniment or a little bit of soprano, but then it melted into the alto. It had that connection with classical saxophone very much for me.
Yeah. I mean, I've written it really much as a classical piece. I mean, it wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't supposed to be. I mean, I suppose my kind of there's a jazziness to this of like the harmonic writing and whatever. But
Yeah.
I really did want to think of it as a classical piece more than anything else. But yeah, I mean that and also I think also that at the end as well is that having the tenor and baritone sax pretty much in the high register as well.
Yeah.
That kind of helps to that. So it's supposed you're supposed to come out of the piece feeling unsettled still. I'm sorry.
No, I think, and I mentioned it to you again a few weeks ago, that the connection the saxophone has. We think of saxophone being invented in Belgium by Adolphe Sax, but very much a French classical tradition. But in Holland, I mentioned one of their composers, contemporary composers, Louis Andriessen.
Yeah, you mentioned,
and his Workers' Union and a very socialist, socially driven composers in a sort of an angry minimalist style. I don't think Louis would mind me saying this. And I felt your writing here really captured a DeVolk Harding sort of style of playing. There's a lovely venue called Icebreaker in Amsterdam. And what you've written here and composed was a Louis Andriessen moment, which is really brilliant for me because I connect with a lot with Louis' music. And it was a sort of composer that you weren't immediately aware of. But
exactly. Yeah, well, it's just like it's the whole
osmosis.
thing, isn't it? Happy accidents. That's what it's all about. This is all. I mean, even the whole coming about of this is it's a happy accident, isn't it? I mean, it's the nature of our business as well that so much of what we do is down to coincidences and
working with your mates, and that's the big thing I've really felt a loss to over this time. I suppose musicians always have a dry sense of humour, and maybe in that sense of always having to travel and get ins and get outs. And the thing I thought I didn't like at all are the actual things I'm really missing the most. All those miserable times travelling with my mates to these miserable places were fantastic.
I know exactly. You do realise how lucky you are about some things, aren't you? But I mean, for me, I as a composer, I live a completely solitary life anyway. So a lot of this isn't not that much different for me,
No.
But as I said, I was before I kind of started taking the writing seriously. I was kind of a player, keyboard player, pianist, and what have you. So. So I do appreciate the, I mean, I feel so much for the musical community at the moment because, just the work situation and how the future is going to pan out. But I do miss, this. We work together, and we were working up in London last year, and hopefully we will be doing so again. And obviously you come to this very studio and do some stuff as well, and it's I mean those are the highlights for me, just being able to work with lots of different musicians, and that's what it's all about, really.
I mean, we are sociable beings.
I think we are
as humans,
exactly. Yes, exactly. So
this highlights that. I just want to say also, it's been an interesting project for the quartet because in the past we'd always just played contemporary classical music live, and then we had the situation of having to sync our parts playing live with Project Flicks to images. So for the first time we were involved in performance having to wear headphones and even playing to a click track. Certain of the other works we'd had written for us meant hitting certain points in the film and starting and stopping in the right place. So to record this, we've recorded it as a quartet in isolation. I'm here down in the southwest, and Tim is up in Hertfordshire, and Christian's up in Bedfordshire. And then we couldn't even engage with our alto player, Pete Wyman, because he hadn't got a home recording setup, sadly. So we were lucky enough to have Graham Blevins join us on alto, and Graham has been part of this saxophone quartet's journey for years. Graham was our soprano player for many years. So he's part of the family, the Delta family. We lost him to Kylie Minogue tour one time, and
as
David.
You do,
so
exactly.
Our dancing moves weren't quite up to Graham's.
Exactly.
So great. But actually, it sort of fitted the bleakness in a way, or the sadness when you record together. There's the camaraderie of being together in a studio.
Yeah.
And if we'd have recorded this piece with you in a studio, which we will do, I hope, in the future, it will be a very different experience.
It would be different, and it'd be lovely to sort of be with everybody in the room, and we can rehearse and just talk about, and obviously then we can make tweaks and sort of like refine details and things like that, and see if things aren't quite working or whatever in a live, but I think it does give it a little bit of extra weight, doesn't it? Actually, everybody, this is kind of like images of a city in lockdown, and we're all kind of locked down and working independently of each other because we can't go near each other at the moment, so it's a so that kind of makes the whole project even more interesting that it's been recorded this way. So.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I just want to say a huge thank you for joining Project Flicks.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope we can do some more in the future. And some of the other ideas that I was mulling around, hopefully we can put those into fruition sometime.
Well, and the most important thing I think for this is we'd love to. We will find a way of performing this live and sharing it with an audience, even if they're all going to have to be self-distanced by 2 meters, or on the film it says 1.5 meters. I think one of the images seems to be social distancing is slightly closer.
Well, exactly. In the Amsterdam, it's 1.5, isn't it? Yes, but the WHO is 1 meter, isn't it? So
it's a flexible frame.
It's a flexible.
But we will perform this live
one
both
day,
in the UK, and I hope for our friends in Holland too.
Exactly.
At some stage.
All over. It'd be lovely. Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul, for giving all of your energy, time, and also managing to resource these images, which I think are really exciting.
No, it's a pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been wonderful. Thank you.